So I recently got a hold of some Beyblades. And these are the old school Beyblades. Well, okay, not the old school Beyblades. Those are all plastic and awful. These are the metal fight Beyblades. These are actually pretty cool. And to launch these things, you've got these little dedicated launcher bits. You just stick it on the hooks and you let it rip, as they say. And if you got two of them, you can have a battle. But to get them to really do anything, you need a stadium, which I have right here. And the stadium is cool because it's all concave and they'll kind of just go in a circle. It depends on like the kind of tip and all that, like the flat tips go a little faster. Watch this. See, look at that. That one's moving. Hold on, I'm gonna incite some violence. And you know what? Beyblade is actually really fun. At least the old metal fight stuff that I know about. This was huge back when I was in like elementary to middle school. I still kind of remember all of the meta. Like this one right here, Gravity Destroyer. This dude is badass. This is some random one, Thermal Wolf, I believe. This is just kind of garbage. And I've even been playing with 3D printing some of my own parts. This dude, if I had access to 3D printing, I would have made so many Beyblade parts back in the day. That's all I would have done with a 3D printer. Let's see if we can really get a fight going here. Oh, jeez. Okay. So, you don't want that to happen. See, this guy's just too short. Too short for his own good. We'll try this one, Pegasus something or other. And there's so much that matters, like the launch angle and stuff. Whoa. Whoa, so it can actually be a pretty good game, especially if you got a buddy. It's really fun. But unfortunately, I have ruined this game for myself, and that's entirely because I built this. This is the WMD launcher. There are different kinds of launchers in the Beyblade universe. There's the ripcord launcher, you saw that earlier. There's the string launcher. This is technically a rev-up launcher, but it's been modified to just be a string launcher. There's launchers that can spin both right and left and all this other crazy stuff. But the one I built, this one just makes the game unplayable. This is the pull starter for a lawnmower, and there is an intricate gear system involved. If I remember correctly, the total mechanical advantage is like 12 to 1. Mechanical advantage, is that the right term? I'm taking a very slow input and making it very fast, and that's 12 to 1. And so let me just give you an example here. The tip on this one is a little bit sharper, which means it doesn't move around as much. Here's with the normal ripcord launcher. Okay, decent amount of movement. This one's a little bit worn out. That's not bad. We'll switch over to the modified rev-up launcher with a string. This is more powerful. Good amount of movement there. And now we'll use the WMD. Excuse me, I need to stand up for this. So... yeah, they hurt now. Just listen to this. Like, there's so much airflow coming off of that thing. Ow, jeez. And there are some with rubber tips that have like really high friction with the stadium. These ones go really fast. Now they go irresponsibly fast. Fuck, I need to stop grabbing them. This is what I mean when I say I've ruined the game. So rubber tips functionally don't exist now. Half of them just do this. Whoa, whoa. Holy crap. Okay, this one just needs to be taller. We'll put a taller track on there. Oh, holy crap! The dude left the stadium! Stop. So the game cannot be played, like I said earlier. Whoa, that is quick. But like, you can still do stuff. Oh, that was sick. My favorite thing to do is grabbing the ones with the most recoil and then playing those. Oh. Oh! I don't even know where that one went. If you're using this launcher, nobody wins, but everybody will get hurt. And that has to count for something. Oh, that was a sick knockout. I like to call this one the trumpets of hell, because that's where you'll end up when this thing pops out of the stadium and fucking kills you. A little aggressive, that one. Oh! It's terrifying! It's scary! They're so scary. Oh, jeez, man! Oh, did that crack my monitor? I'm surprised they aren't breaking. Like, you can see the battle scars, especially on these painted ones, but they're not, like, chipping off. Man, these have taken some damage. So here it is, the WMD launcher. I'm gonna put like a little tutorial together or something in the 3D printed files, and then where you can buy this lawnmower starter if you want to make this thing. But I sincerely hope you don't. Jeez! All right, so to put this thing together, you will need one of these, various M2 screws, various small washers, and various M3 screws. Also some of these little heat set brass inserts and a way to put them in. A soldering iron works great. And a little bit of silicone grease. I mean, any grease will do. I just like this one. And that's it for the hardware, but you'll also need to sacrifice one of your Beyblade launchers. It doesn't really matter which one. All we need is this piece. Not to mention, you will also need all of the 3D printed parts, and there will be links to everything you see before you in the description. If you don't have a 3D printer, there's actually some services that you can send the 3D print files and they can print them out for you. There's ones like Shapeways, PCBWay can do it, or just ask your uncle with a 3D printer. That works too. All right, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is take off the launcher piece. All we need are the little hooks. We don't need any of the stuff in here. We don't even need this screw. So put those aside and just hold on to this guy. Now we're gonna take the big plate piece and we're gonna put in 4 heat set inserts. And it technically doesn't matter which side you put these in from, but I would recommend putting them in through the bottom, just because then it'll come out cleaner on this side, which is the side you're mating to the starter. So just take your soldering iron, stick it through right there, and just go ahead and slowly push it in until it's just a little bit past flush. Right there. And that's what you want it to look like. So do that on all 4 corners. Now I want you to go ahead and grab the output shaft. All of these shafts should not be printed standing up like that. You're gonna wanna print them with one of the sides flat. You want the layers to build up going this way. And the reason for that is that they can shear from the torque of the launcher and they can split in half really easily if you print it going up and down like that. And this one is a little tricky, so you're gonna need a little bit of support. You can see it came out a little bit scummy. But this one you also wanna print like that. But anyway, this piece, take your insert, stick it right in the end. And now this one, you can't just push the soldering iron straight into it because it doesn't go deep enough. If you've got the proper tool for this, you already know what to do. But if you're using a soldering iron, you'll just wanna kind of do it like this. This takes longer to heat up, but this way you're not jamming the end of it straight into the print. All right, that looks pretty good. If you accidentally burn the print a little bit, that's no big deal. That's fine. Now you're gonna wanna take your 2 pillars and you're gonna put a heat insert in both sides of both of them. All right, those are good to go. Next, we're gonna use this piece right here. When printing this one, definitely print it in this orientation. You're gonna have to put some support material in there, but that's all right. You want this to be as smooth as possible. So go ahead and put a couple of inserts in the back of this. And don't be like me and put the wrong size one in there. You gotta use the ones that are less than 6 millimeters. And that'll do it for this part. In fact, that'll do it for all of the heat inserts. Now I want you to go ahead and grab the lawnmower starter. Very carefully take off this center screw. And the reason I say very carefully is because there is a very large spring in the back of this thing, and it has the potential to come out once this screw is out. So if I were you, I would hold on to the outer plastic here and then unscrew this. Now just take this inner plastic ring out. You should be okay to let go at this point. You'll have to just kind of feel it out. If it wants to come up on you, then don't let go. But mine seems like it's staying stable. Whatever you do, do not pull this in this state. It will actually just blow up on you. Okay, so now with that piece we just took out, you're gonna wanna take this washer out and then just transplant it to the piece that we just finished with. And this should already be kind of pre-greased, so you don't really need to put any more in. All right, and there you go. That is now in. And now this part can be kind of tricky because you really want that washer to stay in there, but now you got to flip it upside down. Oh, see, it just fell out for me. So I'm going to just pick it up, do it this way. Okay, so once you get that on the spring there, you want to rotate the 3D printed part until the teeth of this nylon piece line up with the indent on the 3D printed part. So that's perfect right there. Go ahead and press it down. Take the screw, put it back in, and screw it back down. Make sure that you're mating with these indents correctly. You don't want the 3D print to be on top of it. But this looks good to me. So now what you're going to want to do is slowly turn this. We want to make sure that the screw is not turning with the rest of it. So pull a little bit to get it to turn. Okay, it's not turning in that direction. And then go ahead and come back. It's not turning in that direction. So that looks good to me. All right, next step, go ahead and grab this piece and we're just going to install it on the starter just like that. Now grab some of your M3 screws. I'm going to be using M3 by 8mm screws for this, and then get those connected together. And don't over torque these because the heat inserts can come out if they're not inserted too great. Next, you're going to want to take some cutters of some kind, and we need to cut down this portion of the nylon plastic. You can just start right here and snip that off, and then you can snip that off, and we want to cut down this ridge a little bit. Oh, and that should be good enough. And then do it again on the other side. And that's perfect. Next, go ahead and take the large shaft. There's a couple of pins that you got to take out here. I think there's one on 2 of the corners. Okay. Actually, I'm going to change my mind a bit. Let's not put this in quite yet. Go ahead and grab the large output shaft ring and apply some grease to the top of it. Don't need a ton, just enough to get a decent coating on there. Now go ahead and put that on the shaft, and I want the greased side to be up, and then push it down to about like that. Now go ahead and grab your big gear and then slide that on. Now you're going to want to grease the gear. You just need to put a couple of really big chunks in a couple of different spots, maybe like 4 or 5 of these, and then it'll spread itself around as it spins. Then once you've greased the big gear, go ahead and grab your smaller input shaft ring. Go ahead and grease one side of that as well. Now take the input shaft and flip it around like this, and make sure the greased side of the ring is up, and then put it on like that. Now we'll go ahead and take the body plate. I forgot that we were supposed to take the 2 pillars and get those installed. A couple of small M3 screws. All right, so now that the pillars are put in, now we can put this in. Make sure that all of the extra holes on the body plate are on the right side of it, and then make sure the puller on the starter is on the bottom left side of it. Once you're in that orientation, you can go ahead and put it on. And for that, I'm going to use some M3 by 10mm screws. You're probably going to have to put a washer on it as well so it doesn't sink into these holes. And then put the screws in on the starter end. Then once that is attached, we're going to go ahead and grease the inside of the hole on the body plate, the big one right here. But make sure not to get it into the pentagon-shaped hole. So just right along the edge. I also want you to grease the input shaft right where it meets the small ring. So all along it right there. And try and clean off some of the excess. We don't want too much of it on the shaft itself, just in the corner. All right, now go ahead and install the input shaft. Now go ahead and grab the intermediate shaft and press the intermediate gear onto it. You want about an even amount of space on each side. Now go ahead and grab a M6 washer and add some grease to both sides of that. Take your washer, set it right there, and then grease another washer and put it on the other side. Go ahead and put some grease on each of the edges of the intermediate shaft on both sides. And then we can go ahead and put it into the body plate with the bigger gear facing up, just like that. Now you're going to want to take the output shaft and slip a greased M6 washer onto it, and then put that into this piece. And then go ahead and grease right along the circular ridge on the output shaft. Then go ahead and install the cover, and then that will go on with some very small M2 screws. And these are just threading into the plastic, so be careful not to over torque them. Then we're going to take this piece that looks vaguely like the channel logo, and we're going to install that circle side up right onto the output shaft. And since the output shaft needs to be printed horizontally with support material and all that, it can be a little bit scummy, and you may need to trim it down just a tiny little bit to get it to fit. But you want to get it on there enough so that the output shaft and then the blue piece are just about flush in there. And then you want to take your launcher piece, but just note that it's going to be a little tough to get in there. But once that is on, you can secure it with another M3 screw. I think this is an M3x6, and make sure you put a washer on there. Now take another greased washer and stick that on that side, then install the small gear. And this can be kind of tough. I like to take a screwdriver with a changeable bit on the end and then just kind of, and then take the output shaft bushing and install that same way. And then another greased washer. And now you should be able to install this top plate. Then secure it down with a couple more M3 screws. Make sure the two big gears got greased, by the way. That's really important. And that's it. Now you're gonna notice right off the bat here that it's a bit tight. And see, it doesn't even retract from... Oh. Okay, I guess it does retract. It just has a hard time sometimes. Like right now. And you know what? That is okay. Because there is kind of a break-in period with this thing. And the best way to break it in is really just to use it. If you want, you can also go back through and re-grease stuff if you think you didn't do a great job. But honestly, it just takes some time. And don't pull it too hard and too fast too early because you might actually melt some of the plastic parts. But yeah, the more you use it, the faster it'll get broken in. I love this thing. Thank you for watching. But to get them to really do anything, you need a...
I was so...
The core eject is a powerful and versatile tool at your disposal. Not only can it be used offensively, but it's also got applications for movement. I've covered a number of these different functions in other videos, and this time around we're going to talk about the other properties of the core grenade and core sniping. Let's get into it. The core grenade is a physical object that's affected by explosions and shockwaves, meaning that they'll send it flying in other directions. If you're in a chaotic fight with lots of explosions, this could potentially interfere with where your core will land if you're not paying attention. This also applies to the Knuckle Blaster shockwave. Cores can also interact with each other, but only slightly. If two cores touch, they'll simply bounce off one another. You can also launch cores off of jump pads or juggle them on one until they despawn. The core itself has a lifetime of around 30 seconds. It's also the primary target of a ricochet from the marksman, as long as it has line of sight. Core eject grenades will also bounce off of malicious faces. These can lead to some interesting setups for combo potential. One thing you might not notice initially about the core grenade is that they do not share the player's momentum like coins do. This means that, if you're in movement, the core will not follow with you and will instead launch along its path from the exact spot where you let it loose. Since the core will essentially move towards the spot where you are aiming at, you'll be able to easily predict where it'll go. This does take some practice to get the hang of, and different charge times will give you different projectile arcs. This is incredibly important to understand when you want to lob the grenade or, more importantly, go for core snipes. If you're not aware of what a core snipe is, it's when you shoot the core eject grenade with a hit scan weapon, like the revolvers or the electric rail cannon. You can also snipe it with a malicious rail cannon, but we'll get to that in a moment. Core sniping increases the range and damage of the core explosion, now called a super explosion, doubling the damage and doubling the range. The core at the center, or 0 point, does 3.5 damage with a fall off of 2.3. So sniping doubles that damage to 7 at the 0 point, with the fall off being 4.6. Now remember how I said you can snipe with the malicious rail cannon? This results in the largest explosion in the game currently, and the community has taken to calling this technique the nuke.
Something else you may have noticed is that yes, you can actually use the malicious face's beam for an assisted nuke.
I've covered it briefly in my P-1 guide and my Easier Ultra Boost video, but there's some things I neglected to mention on it since I last covered it there. When you perform a nuke, the damage at the 0 point is 13.25, almost double that of the normal core snipe. It has 2 fall-off ranges. Fall-off 1 does 10.85 damage, and fall-off 2 does 4.6. Note that using the electric rail cannon does not result in a nuke and will instead produce a normal super explosion from a core snipe. So what are some ways to make core sniping easier? Well, first thing I would say is to set custom keybinds, and then get used to using your keys to swap your weapons. The key to faster sniping is faster weapon swapping. You should also practice sniping the core at different charge levels so you're more easily able to predict the path of its arc. Typically speaking, the longer the charge, the faster and less of a curve to that arc you'll get. If you give yourself some space, you can ignore needing to hit the core directly by using a ricochet from the marksman. This is probably the easiest way to hit the core if you're moving around a lot, and if you're good at hitting your coins. For myself, I typically like to approach core snipes from the air. While I'm moving, I like to move either forward or backwards, drop the core, then snipe it. I usually try to dash too so I can avoid the explosion, since I typically detonate the core fairly close to myself.
There are some additional movement options that you can utilize as well with core sniping. First is the vertical CE boost. It's very simple. Aim up, toss up a core, and shoot it to gain a decent amount of height. Next is the D blast. Toss a core close by, and as you snipe it, you want to dash through during the hit stop. If done correctly, you should get a decent boost and take about 23 damage. There's also a mid-air version of this tech that was discovered by Debatable. While in the air, dash and drop a core. Hold the S key and swap to the revolver. The core should be in front of you. Now snipe the core and dash through during the hit stop again to get a 23 damage mid-air CE boost.
So there you go. I hope you all learned something this lesson, and I'll have more advanced courses arriving soon, specifically a follow-up to the coin mechanics guide.
First, a quick shout out to HeckTech, Mac, and BGB in the Ultrakill Discord for putting all this information together in a single document. I'll provide a link to it in the description for those who would like to read it over more. Everything I'll be going over is covered in there, and I'm simply giving a visual example of how to perform these techniques. And minor visual spoilers ahead. Alright, before moving into the main technique, you need to know what a slam jump is. It's really simple. You perform a slam while in the air, jump when you hit the ground, and you gain an even greater height on your way back up. Your slam jump height will be even greater from a higher fall. But if you store a slam from any height and jump as soon as you reach the ground, you can gain some insane verticality. This is known as slam storage. So what is slam storage? It's a technique that essentially tricks the game into thinking you're in a constant slam state, allowing you to build up potential speed.